Hi, today is time for another video review. I got another relay module from ICStation.com. This one is one of those delay and trigger modules similar to what I have reviewed a long time ago and been quite popular. Look for the card to that video in the corner. This is a fairly similar module with modes for different trigger signals, on-off delays, and on top of it for voltage detection. One of the strong features is that delays can be set from tens of milliseconds to minutes and hours. I got this module a few months ago, and since ICStation ran into stock problems and the product's been removed from their store temporarily. But you find the purchasing link in the video description, which will become live once again they restock the product.
If you look at the other side and if you look at this XY-J05 and you just put it into Google, you can find other sources where you can purchase this module. So going back to the whole thing and what this module does. So as I said, it's a trigger one. So it has the usual functions of creating different cycle modes when the relay would be on and off as well. But on top of this, there are all these trigger ports as well. So there are modes in the module which will start the relay on and off based on the triggers that are received here, and then it can receive a low trigger. So it's basically the ground and the low connected together. That would be a trigger, or a high trigger, which is would be like a voltage higher than 3 volts. And of course it has an input to provide power to run the unit, but on the other side there is also a voltage sense or a voltage detection port, because there are again certain modes here which work not based on the input trigger but based on the input voltage, and then turn the relay on based on whether the voltage are lower or higher than certain threshold. So it is really like a multifunctional device, and it's quite a small one. It's a nice nice layout. You have the 4 buttons here to go through the settings and then change the screen. There are 4 M3 mounting holes in the corners, so that's nice. You have the usual like 250 volt 10 amp relay, and some optocouplers and some MOSFETs and probably some production stuff as well. There is a LED on the top just to show whether the relay is on or off, and there's not much on the other side. So all the terminals are silk screened, and you get this XY-J05 as the sort of the model number. So in this video I'm going to talk about the general layout and the specifications, and I'm going to go through all the different modes and then have some stuff on the side overlaid here on the screen just to show some additional information. And I'm probably going to tell you a couple of times in this video that the link to this document and also purchasing links can be found in the video description. So let's get down to it. So first let me give a general overview of the board and the different connections. So the most important one is this bottom left connection. Top one is positive, bottom the lower one is the negative one, and that provides power to the board, and that accepts anything from 6 to 30 volts DC. So it's a nice wide voltage range. The connections on the opposite side of the screen or the display is the voltage detection input. So for the voltage detection mode or the voltage related modes, that's where you feed in your voltage. So again, positive and then negative. And for the test of it, I just loop the supply voltage over. So I'm using the same, and of course there's no issue using the same voltage to monitor and to supply the unit, as long as it's within the range. And by the way, the voltage detection can accept anything from 0 to 60 volts. On the top left we have the trigger inputs. The middle pin or the middle terminal is ground, and then you can trigger the device using a low trigger, which is basically, let's say that's a switch connected to ground. So if I do that, then the current program starts, which is at the moment it's an off delay. But so if you have like a physical switch or anything which sends a ground signal, then you use the button terminal, And then if you want to trigger on positive signal, which it can be anything from 3 to 24 volts, then you use the upper one. I just have to get another piece of wire, so positive and top, and yeah, of course it will start. And on the top left, sorry, on the top right, you have the relay connection. So it's the middle one is common, the lower one is normally open, and the other one is normally closed. By the way, all the information I'm overlaying here, I'm exporting it to a PDF document, and you find the link to that PDF document in the video description. Next, I want you to talk about a little bit on the different controls. So in standby mode, well, actually, when I'm powering, so if I power up the module, you see this P1.1 flashing. That just shows the actual mode the device is in. So that happens every time you to turn it on. And you can display the actual mode again by long pressing the set button. So now it says it's a P1.1 mode, and oh, sorry, this is my bad. Okay, so it's a P1.1 mode, and the OP parameter is 10. So again, it's a short press does that. One press on the down button shows the actual voltage. So I'm feeding in 12 volts, so it's jumping between 12 and 11.9. You press again, you come back to this view. So 4 zeros is the standby mode for the trigger. So it's basically waiting for a trigger, and when the trigger comes, then it does the counting based on the settings. So I have the first parameter set to 10. So now it's counting up to 10 seconds. And then it will go back to standby, which is the 4 zeros. Sometimes the standby is 4 dashes, and then if it's a voltage related mode, then it just shows the voltage all the time. What you can do in here, by pressing the stop button short, you will see an off and an on text flashing, and that basically means that you can disable the relay. So if I trigger it again, the off cycle starts again, but the relay is not on. So, and then by pressing the stop button again, it shows on, and then the relay comes on. So using the stop button, a short press on the stop button works as an enabler for the relay. And if you press long press on the stop button, you see this OD, and if you do again, you see the CP. So the CP mode is a power save mode, which the only thing a power save mode or the sleep mode does is after a couple of minutes it's going to turn off the display. So the display will go blank, but still the whole unit will keep working, and it will accept triggers and everything. So that's the general operation. And then if you long press the set button, then you can go into settings. So first it shows you the different modes that you can set, and if you press the set again short, then you see the parameters that you can change, and within the parameters you can set the length or the time or the count of the actual parameter or the voltage. We'll see how it looks like in each of the modes. And then when you are setting this, you have one extra function, which is the stop button. And what you see is by pressing the stop, you can move the dot around, and that modifies whether this is treated as a... So this is the default one. So if the dot is here at the fourth digit, then it means it's seconds. If it's here, then it's 0.1 seconds. So 10 would be, well, that would be 1 second. And if the dot is here, then it's 0.01 seconds, so that 10 would be 10 milliseconds, so 0.1 second. And then if you have 4 dots, that's basically minutes, so 10 would be then 10 minutes. And if you long press here, then you get out of the mode, and then you go back to basic mode. Or sorry, you go back to standby. So I just realized I needed to bend this lead up because I'm just going to overlay some information here. So at the moment you will see the different parameters that I used in all the different modes. Obviously not all of them would be used at the same time. And then you also see the time format, which I have also explained it earlier, but then it just shows an example how the different times are when you have the numbers 15 or 15 and the dot in different places. And now you can see the program flow, which again I just explained. So the first mode is mode 1.1, and there is only one parameter, which is the OP parameter, and this mode works like an off delay. So it is waiting for a trigger, so it's not going to do anything when you power it on. So it starts in standby, and when you do a trigger, the relay comes on and it counts for the delay cycle that is setting the OP parameter. Then it's going to turn off, and then the module is back in the standby state, so you can trigger this anytime you want. And as I said, you can trigger it with low trigger or you can trigger it with high trigger. It doesn't really matter. It works exactly the same way. So if I take my lead and again I connect power plus and the trigger plus, then again it would just start. So this is, you know, great for, let's say, some sort of ventilation fan that you turn on, and then you need it to turn off after a set period of time, or anything which needs to turn itself automatically off. So that's probably a mode which would be used most. And then, so let me show you a setup cycle. So you press the set again. You have the mode which is not blinking, so you use the up button to move to the next one. Here we again only have an OP parameter. I leave it to 10. I press long set again just to get out of the mode, and then it will show me the current mode again, so 1.2, that's fine. This mode works almost like the previous one, so it's another version of the off delay. So again, if it receives a trigger, it starts counting, but if it receives another trigger, then it resets the counter, and again it responds to positive and negative triggers as well. And of course, at the end of the cycle, the relay will turn off. So this could be used for similar applications when you have multiple signals. Next one is mode 1.3. And here we again only have one OP parameter, but maybe I switched it twice. And you receive a trigger, you start the counter with the trigger, and if another trigger is received in this period, then the relay gets reset. Again, I'm trying to think about a real world example, but I can't really, so it's like it's like a delay that you can interrupt with another signal. So you can have, for example, you can start with a positive trigger, and then you can just have a button to interrupt it at any point where you want. So it could be useful in some situations. Next one is, now we are on to program 2, so we have finished with program 1s. And I should have gotten another, okay, yeah, as you can see, sometimes it is really difficult to get into the modes because the thing is not working correctly. Okay, so program 2, and now I should have, okay, I have now a CL parameter as well. So the CL is 3 seconds, the OP is 10, because the way this works, now I need to get out of this mode. Okay, so it's program 2, is you do a trigger and it starts counting up to CL, and then starts counting up to OP, and then it's going to turn off. So it's an on delay. So there is an off part and there is an on part, and then it resets. And then moving on from this mode, we have, please work, we have mode 3. And in mode 3 again we have a CL and an OP, but if I just do a trigger, then nothing really happens. You can see the dot coming in, so it started doing something, but it did not actually do it. So what I need to do, I need to hold the trigger for the CL cycle, and then the relay comes on, and when I let it go, then it starts counting the OP cycle and it turns off. I'm scratching my head trying to figure out what would be the use of this mode. I couldn't figure out anything yet, so, but again, you might need this in certain applications. Next mode is going to be, now we are in mode freeze. These are still triggers. And then we have an OP. Okay, so let's keep it 11. And we should have a CL mode as well. Okay, OPCL. Okay, sorry. You cycle through the modes by pressing the set. And then, okay, you get out. So 4.1. It's going to be, and again, an on-off delay. So you start with the trigger. So it starts counting up. And then it starts the on cycle, but it doesn't actually start the counter. It receives for another signal for the counter to start, and then again it counts in this case it counts up to 10, and then it's going to switch off. So it requires two triggers to start. Well, one trigger to start the off cycle, and then one trigger to start the on cycle. The next mode is still going to be mode number 3 point something, so that's going to be 3.2, and we still have an OP, and we have a CL. Okay. And what this one does is similar to the previous one, but again, any trigger within the OP or the CL cycle is going to restart the cycle. So I just let it run to number 3. As we have seen before in program 4.1, the on timer did not start, so I need a trigger to start it. So now it's going to count up to 10, but again, any subsequent trigger is going to reset the counter. And then eventually counts up to 10 and then switches off. And of course, all these cycles can be repeated at any number of times. Moving on to next one is number 5.1. And here we have an OP, we have a CL, and we have also this loop 1 counter, which is set to 4 as well. And the way this mode works, if I get out of this mode, if I get out of the settings, is that I have on-off cycles. Okay. And it counts up, it counts up to the OP cycle, so it starts with an on cycle, and then it's the CL off cycle, and it goes to on again and off again, and it does this on off cycle loop number of times, or sorry, loop 1 number of times. Okay, next one. So 5.2, we have an OP and a CL and the loop 1. And because it's called 5 point something, it's probably going to be something similar to the previous one. The only difference is that if I just click on it, then you see the relay comes on for a really short amount of time. So in this case, it's not only that it needs a trigger to start, but it also needs that trigger to hold for that cycle to complete. If I let go the trigger, the whole thing stops and resets. So again, you can have a number of cycles as long as the trigger is on. That can be a useful function again if you don't want to wait. Don't want to go all the way through the cycle, just stop at one point. Next mode is going to be, we are leaving 5s. Oh, sorry, I'm going through my documents now because I also have these things, and it seems that I have missed 5.3. And it has an OP and a CL and a loop 1, just like before. Okay, so 5.3 is actually the mode that I thought that it is 5.1. This is why it was a little bit puzzled. But this is one of the modes, if not the only mode, which doesn't read the trigger. So if I power cycle it, and if I turn on, you see that the mode the cycle starts immediately. So again, it works exactly like 5.1 and 5.2 in terms of the different on-off cycles, but it doesn't need a trigger, so it will start automatically. Wonderful. Moving on. So number 6, we are in 60s, and this doesn't have any parameters. So if I just get out of the mode, and now you can see that the standby mode for this one, actually for all the 6s, is the 4 dashes. So here you get a trigger, the relay comes on, you have another trigger, the relay goes off. And of course you have to make sure that you're not getting multiple triggers at the same time, because you know this lead touches the screw, and then sometimes it just causes us to create multiple signals. So anyway, this is a simple latch. The next one is going to be 6.2. Again, no parameters. And that's going to be interesting, and this is one of the modes where the high trigger or the low trigger actually counts. So you start with if you do a low trigger, then nothing really happens. But if you do a high trigger with this lead, then the relay comes on. If you do another high trigger, nothing happens. But if you do a low one, then the relay goes off. So high trigger turns the relay on, the low trigger turns the relay off. And if I go into the next mode, which is 6.3, it's going to be the opposite of this. So low trigger turns the relay on, the high trigger turns it off. So really simple. And so that's the end of the latch modes, because the next one is 7. And here we have 2 other parameters, CNOP, which is 5, and CNCL, which is 10. So this is like count OP and count CL. And the way it works is these modes turn on and off by counting number of inputs. So I do a trigger and then it starts counting up, and if I reach, what was it, 4 I think? No, 5. The relay comes on, it resets the trigger, and now I need 7 number of inputs for the relay to, no, I think 10, sorry, for the relay to go off. So you can do like this. So the relay comes on and off based on the number of counts. And of course, every state change resets the counter. This is the only mode that we have with counters. So if we move on, now we are in the U mode, U for voltage. And here you have NL1 and a UL1. So this is like upper and lower voltages. So I have it set for 10 and 13 volts. And if I get out, you will see that for all the U modes, within the standby mode, the screen shows the current voltage. And of course, because we are in voltage modes, the triggers are not used in this modes at all. So what I can do is I can go into my power supply and I start setting this, changing this voltage. And so U1 mode is a basic charger. So you have a lower threshold, and whenever the voltage drops below the lower threshold, then the relay turns on. So let's say it turns on a charger, and if it goes above an upper threshold, then it's going to turn off. So if I start lowering the voltage, so 10, now we are below 10 volts, so 9.9, and then the relay comes on, and if I start increasing the voltage, and if we reach 13, then the relay turns off. So there are 2 application nodes how you can connect the charger. You can see it like here. of course they are pretty much the same. It just depends whether you put the relay into the main side of the charger or the DC side of the charger. And as you can see, you can power it from a different power supply, or if the voltage range is within, or the sense voltage range is within the supply voltage range, then you can just loop through and then have the same voltage feed in, you know, both sides. Moving on to the next mode. Okay, again. So it's U2. And here we have the same parameters, so UL1 and NL1. I just pressed it long accidentally. And this is a discharger. So again, we have the upper voltage of 13 volts. So if I keep increasing the voltage, and if it goes, oh sorry, I need to go into set mode, okay. So if I keep increasing the voltage and it goes above 13 volts, then the relay comes on. And if I start lowering the voltage and it drops below 10, it's going to turn off. So again, you can use this to connect to a battery and a load, and have that load slowly discharge the battery and then safely turn off when the battery voltage drops below a certain one. And of course, you can have a switch on the power supply side to cut the power from this whole circuitry if you don't want the discharger to actually work. So we have 2 more modes to go, or programs to go. U3, again we have the 2 upper and lower limits. And if I get out, okay, it's actually going to turn on, because what this does, what this mode does is it turns the relay on if we are within the upper and the lower voltage range. So if I start lowering it, then it turns off. As soon as we go in between 10 and 13, then it's on. And if we go above 13, it turns off. So this can be used as a, let's say, for example, an indicator saying that, yeah, the voltage is fine. I'm guessing, I mean, that was my best suggestion for this mode. And then if we go to the last mode, which is U4, then it works exactly the opposite way, sorry. It has the same UL1 and NL1 parameters. And that's basically, it's going to turn the relay on when you are outside this voltage range. So now we are below 10, so the relay is on. If I start increasing the voltage and we go above 10, then it turns off. And if I increase even more, and if it goes above 13, then it again, the relay turns on. So just like before, you can use it as sort of like a monitoring device. Put a bulb here, and then, you know, if the voltage is too high or too low, that bulb will come on, and then it will tell you that, yeah, something needs to be done. If it's like a battery system, then, you know, you have too more voltage, or you don't have enough voltage, something like that. And that's the end of the different modes and the introduction of this module. So again, if you want to see these documents and all the overlays which were here and some other places of the video, just go to the video description, you will find the download link. But other than that, I think that's going to be pretty much it. I quite like the module. I think it's a really nice one. It has some really good features. And the fact that you can change the time base, it gives it, you know, quite a big versatility, because then you can trigger from milliseconds to, you know, hours and minutes and hours. So it's a really, really wide range. One thing I haven't tested, but I'm pretty sure it's going to work, that you can set the let's say you are in mode 2 point something, which has CL and UL, CL and OP, and then you can set them, you know, one being at a minute range, the other one being in you know, millisecond range. So again, it gives even more flexibility. I hope you like this module. Purchasing link to IC stations is going to be in the video description. And thanks for watching. I'll hopefully see you in the next video.